On the night that this game was announced, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 4, I gave my initial reaction, my thoughts on it, and I did talk about how I was a little bit nervous. And I think if any true fan gives a little bit of thought to this game, they'll probably get nervous too. And that's because there's five things that we know this game needs to be true to Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi, the series, because we've got so many other Dragon Ball Z games that have released since then in the past 16 years that don't live up to that standard, and that's why everybody always wanted Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 4, or at least a remaster of Part 3. But here are the top 5 things, or mainly really the only 5 things this game needs to be true to the Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi series.
Give me some sense of beans, yeah, I need to regenerate. I'm about to go off like I'm the Avatar state, and I can say
now, let me in. This is a sim time to fight.
Number 1 is the most obvious one that I think everybody's thinking about, and that is the roster. Dragon Ball Z games ever since basically, I would say, the Raging Blast era have not had as many characters as the Budokai Tenkaichi franchise. After Raging Blast, we start getting other games like Ultimate Tenkaichi, and even as recent as Dragon Ball FighterZ, we just don't have a big of roster as the Budokai Tenkaichi games. And when it comes to a game like Xenoverse and Xenoverse 2, they try to put in a bunch of content into that game and fill up that roster with so much DLC, but here's the thing, they were really pretty much the same characters over and over, which we'll get to in the next one, but the roster just needs to be big, and it can't simply be DLC. When it comes to literally all of the Budokai Tenkaichi games, we had all of these characters. We have characters that go from basically King Piccolo of Dragon Ball to characters from GT like Super Saiyan 4 Goku. We have characters that are insignificant like a Cyberman, and we have characters that are very significant, at least for the time, like Omega Shenron. These characters, they gotta be here. We need to have the insignificant characters and the significant characters. This is why I think all of us would be less nervous if they said we are going to get a remaster of Budokai Tenkaichi 3, because that way we know we already have all these characters, and then if they wanted to put DLC for the newer Dragon Ball Super characters, we would all be for that. But if they give us a small roster, like how we got with something like FighterZ or any of the recent games, and then they're like, don't worry, you'll have DLC. Even with the DLC, that's going to take so much longer, and we already know that with that DLC, we're still not going to have a roster like the other Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi games, which they're kind of known for having.
And now it's time to finish this.
At number 2, we've got something similar, and that is special moves. So we've already went over the roster, but these characters need to have their own special moves. Some of them can share like basically one move, like Super Saiyan 1 Goku could have Kamehameha and Super Saiyan 2 Goku could have Kamehameha. But here's the thing, especially with a game like Xenoverse 2, a lot of the characters kind of were just different skins for the same character. There were even characters that had special moves that didn't even fit them as a character, but it seems the developers were like, just get the character out there and use the special moves that we already have. And that just was not a good thing. That was one of my main complaints about the Xenoverse series, is that it did not feel unique enough for the characters. All the characters pretty much felt the same. It's like they had the same 20, not even, it's like they had the same 10 special moves and just tried to create special move lists out of those 10 special moves for every single character, and that just wasn't it. When it came to special moves in the Budokai Tenkaichi series, they were all really cool, especially for ultimate moves and things of the such. We would kind of get like these small cutscenes for these special moves once they were used, but when it comes to something like Xenoverse, we really didn't get that. It just seemed like a basic beam that came out of the character, and okay, there it goes. It wasn't epic at all. It was kind of lame. And then when it came to fighters, we got some cool special moves. Fighters is a good game, but the thing is, we know that these cutscenes in the game were pretty awesome when it came to like so many different characters and so many unique special moves. We need the special moves that define each character and define each form, and that includes the content from the movies. That's why with Super Saiyan 3 Goku, what did he do? He did the Dragon Fist. That's from a movie, but that is iconic to that form, even if it's not something canon to the actual manga series or TV anime. It was just in a movie, but still they made the forms unique. So that's number 2, special moves.
I have no choice but to fight! Gotta get me!
At number 3, we have gameplay. So this is a major thing. There are a lot of Dragon Ball Z games that are similar to the Budokai Tenkaichi franchise, or even Budokai franchise in general, but they just don't play the same. Budokai Tenkaichi 3, to be specific, the last game, was so addictive with its playstyle. The playstyle was really good. I don't think anyone ever complained about how the gameplay went in that game. Then you get other games like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. When you watch the gameplay in a video, you're like, that's kind of similar, but it wasn't. It actually was very boring to play. That is the worst part of the Dragon Ball Z Kakarot game, was the gameplay. For me, I kind of got tired of the game because it felt like I was just trying to rush through the gameplay just so I can get to watch a cutscene again. And I don't want to play a game that is simply there for like, ooh, look at that. Look at the art style. Look at the cutscenes. Wow. Like, if I wanted to watch the anime, I'd watch the anime. I'm here playing a game. Cutscenes are very important. I just talked about cutscenes when it came to special moves and stuff. But the gameplay has to be literally the gameplay we got in the Budokai series. Of course, I'm not saying make it exactly the same. If you want to make it better, make it better, but don't make it different enough where this just isn't the series, and especially do not make it worse. When it comes to Xenoverse, that kind of looks similar. A lot of people, if they just watch the gameplay, they're like, oh, that's kind of like the same, but it's not. We know that's not the same. There's different mechanics, especially with the stamina, very different, and that just made the game way less fun. So we need to go back to how that game was in Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3. We need to go back to that and make it even better for Budokai Tenkaichi 4. That's why people always bring up this series. We don't want to have a game that has gameplay like the newer games and just has the name from the older games. Bring the gameplay back to how it was. At number 4, we have sagas. And you know, when it comes to Dragon Ball games, a lot of people say they're tired of them retelling the same story and would rather them have an original story. But guess what? When it came to the Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi games, I don't think anybody's really thinking that, because when it came to basically all of them, and especially Budokai Tenkaichi 3, we had that same story covered, you know, the story of Dragon Ball Z and those arcs, but we had all of the sagas. So not just this super brief summarized thing that we see in every single game. We had every single saga. We had the movies were in there. We literally had the story of the movies. We even had a Dragon Ball. We're not talking about Z, we're talking about what came before. We have a fight with King Piccolo and Kid Goku. We have what if sagas. We have so many sagas that we don't know what to do with them. They're there. We have special sagas. We've got GT. So we literally have all these sagas, and basically all they have to do in this new game is keep all of that and just add Super. That's all you have to do. And if we don't get that, well, that's not going to be great. We can't have what we do with these other games, especially right after the Budokai series. We had a game called Ultimate Tenkaichi, and in that game, well, they kind of gave us a story mode that was pretty interesting when it came to a character that we created ourselves, but that left the sagas itself for the basic story mode to not really have anything, and then it cut down the roster significantly. We don't need that. The story mode is interesting, and honestly, like I said, if the developers find it trouble to actually have all the sagas, even though literally the old games did that, well, just remaster those old games, okay? Because that's what we need. We need the sagas in there. If we have like no sagas or a minimal sagas, then that's just not the Budokai Tenkaichi series. And at number 5, finally, is extra content. When we come to all this stuff, we talk about the roster, we talk to special moves, we talk about gameplay, we talk about sagas. That's all a bunch of content. And when it comes to the Budokai Tenkaichi series, we see that it's just flooded with content, and not just content, but quality content, unlike Xenoverse. And so when it comes to extra content, that's something we should see, because the last game, Budokai Tenkaichi 3, had literally everything and more. So we had every saga, we had all these characters, we had the special moves that went on with them, and then we had more. We basically had what if sagas that never happened in the series, but it's like, what if? These developers did so good with that game. They gave us more than we were even asking for, more than we were even expecting, and guess what? It's not like we had to pay more for that. That was just in the game. So when it comes to this series, we need extra content. These are the 5 things that make up basically what the Budokai series is, and we need that. I know if we go back to Budokai 1 for the GameCube, I know it didn't have a crazy amount of content, but you know, it had more characters than we were expecting at that time. It had special moves for each character that were unique. The gameplay was fun for the time. It had the sagas we were expecting, and it actually did have extra content, so it had all that. So now, when it comes to this, every single game built upon that structure, and this new game, Budokai Tenkaichi 4, needs to have all of this, or else we're going to be underwhelmed and disappointed, and it's just going to seem like they scammed us by bringing back the title Budokai Tenkaichi, but not really bringing back the game. So guys, let me know what you guys think. My name's Konjik, I love you, and I'll talk to you in the next video.
And I can say that I'm great, yeah, I can say that I'm perfect. I ain't the one that was out here saving lives, I was purchased. Now we about to take you out if you try to act toxic. I'ma send you straight up to my main man, Konjik.